What if Pangaea never happened? Chapter 1. The Land Before Time and Supercontinents. Imagine a world where the continents decided to stay in their own corners, like introverts at a party. No Pangaea, no awkward moment where everyone bumps into each other and says, "Hey, let's merge into one giant landmass for fun." Nope. Instead, they just chill in their respective spots, drifting around like they've got all the time in the world. You see, about 300 million years ago, Earth's continents actually did come together to form Pangaea, a massive supercontinent where everybody was just one tectonic plate away from each other. It was the ultimate family reunion, but without all the drama. Or so we think. But what if that big get-together never happened? What if the continents just stayed in their lanes, minding their own business? Without Pangaea, things would get interesting. Like, really interesting. First of all, the world's geography would look nothing like it does today. Imagine pulling up Google Maps and seeing Earth's continents scattered all over the place, like a jigsaw puzzle where none of the pieces fit. Got North America hanging out over here, Africa way over there, and Australia doing its own thing as usual. No neat connections, just land masses floating around in their own bubbles. It's like a party where everyone's too cool to mingle. But this isn't just about geography, it's about climate, too. With all that space between continents, the ocean would be doing some serious heavy lifting. Currents would be zipping around, stirring up all sorts of wild weather patterns. Places that are deserts now might be rainforests, and those lovely tropical beaches you dream about, it could be frozen tundras. Without Pangaea to shake things up, Earth's climate would be like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get. Chapter 2. Evolution's Wild Ride. Now let's talk about life. No, not that deep philosophical stuff. Life on Earth. When Pangaea formed, it created land bridges that allowed animals and plants to spread across continents, mix and mingle, and generally make life more interesting. But if Pangaea never happened, it's like setting up a bunch of species on their own private islands and telling them, "Good luck, don't talk to anyone else." Without Pangaea, species would have evolved in isolation, creating some seriously weird and wonderful ecosystems. Imagine kangaroos that never left Australia, dinosaurs that grew up in totally separate neighborhoods, and trees that look like they belong in a Dr. Seuss book. Every continent would be its own little world, with creatures and plants that no one else has ever seen before. It's like Earth would have its own version of the Pokemon universe, with each region having its own unique species to discover. And no, you can't catch them all, because they're on different continents. So you're walking through what we now call Europe, and you stumble upon an animal that looks like a cross between a zebra, a kangaroo, and... wait, is that a beak? Without Pangaea, evolution would have taken some wild turns, leading to creatures that make modern-day animals look downright boring. Chapter 3. Humans? Maybe. Maybe not. And now, let's talk about us, humans. You know, the species that spends way too much time worrying about Wi-Fi and coffee. Would we even be here if Pangaea never happened? Well, maybe. But things would have been a whole lot trickier for our ancestors. Without that giant landmass, early humans would have had a pretty tough time moving around the globe. No Pangaea means no easy land bridges, so migration would have been like trying to cross a giant moat without a bridge. Maybe our ancestors would have figured out how to build boats sooner. That's a big maybe. Without easy access to other continents, human evolution might have taken a totally different path. We could have ended up as completely different species, depending on which isolated continent we ended up on. Picture this. One group of humans evolves in Africa, while another group evolves in what's now South America. Fast forward a few thousand years, and these two groups are completely different. Maybe one group's got webbed feet because they've adapted to living near water, while the other group's got super long legs for running across open plains. It's like an episode of Survivor. The stakes are way higher. Chapter 4. Welcome to Island Land. Now let's get creative. Imagine you live in a world where Pangaea never existed. You're just chilling on your tiny continent. Let's call it Island Land, because why not? You've never even heard of other continents, and the idea that there could be more land out there? Absolutely bonkers. All you know is your little patch of Earth, surrounded by endless oceans, and life is pretty simple. One day, you get a wild idea. What if I just, I don't know, sailed across this ocean and see what's out there? You're basically the first person to think of this, because everyone else is too busy tending to their goats or whatever people do on island land. So you build a rickety little boat and set sail, not really expecting much. Months pass, and just when you're about to give up, you spot land. But wait, this isn't like anything you've ever seen before. The trees are weird, the animals are weirder, and you're pretty sure the grass isn't supposed to be purple. It's like you've stepped into another world. Congratulations, you've just discovered a new continent, and it's full of creatures and plants that no one on island land could even imagine. You're basically a real-life Pokemon trainer now. But here's the thing, this isn't just a fun adventure. Without Pangaea, this would be the reality. Every continent would be its own self-contained ecosystem, with species that never crossed paths with the rest of the world. Exploration would be like stepping into a new dimension every time you found new land. Chapter 5. Trade and Travel. Good luck with that. Let's get back to the real world for a second. No Pangaea doesn't just mean wacky animals and new continents. It means that global trade and travel would be a whole different story. Imagine trying to trade with another continent when it's thousands of miles away and you don't have modern ships or airplanes. Not to mention, the oceans are a lot more dangerous than they are now, thanks to all that free space. Without Pangaea, cultures would develop in isolation, like a bunch of introverted islands. Sure, they might eventually figure out how to communicate, but it'd be a lot harder to share ideas, technologies, and pizza recipes. That's right, without global trade, there's a very real chance that pizza might never have existed. And honestly, that's the scariest part of this whole scenario. Picture a world where the Silk Road never existed, where spices stayed on their home continents, and where people had no idea what chocolate was because it never made it across the ocean. Humanity's progress would have been slowed, and the world would be a much quieter, lonelier place. Chapter 6. Earthquakes, volcanoes, and flatlands. Now let's talk about geology. You didn't think we were going to forget about the Earth itself, did you? Without Pangaea, Earth's tectonic plates would still be doing their thing, moving around and causing earthquakes and volcanoes. But here's the kicker. Without a supercontinent to break apart, the patterns of these natural disasters would be totally different. No Pangaea means fewer dramatic continental collisions, which means fewer mountain ranges like the Himalayas. So, say goodbye to all those epic hiking trips and breathtaking views from the top of the world. Instead, you'd have a much flatter Earth. Fewer mountains and probably fewer natural resources too. That's right. Some of the world's most valuable resources were formed by those colossal geological events. Without them, life on Earth would be a lot less shiny and exciting. Imagine a world where the highest point is just a tall hill, and where people don't know what it's like to stand on top of a mountain and feel like they've conquered the world. The much flatter, simpler place. And honestly, it might get a little boring after a while. Chapter 7. The World's Wild Ride Without Pangaea. So what does all this mean for the world we know today? Well, without Pangaea, Earth would be a very different place. The landscapes, climates, and creatures would be completely unrecognizable. The history of life on Earth, including the history of humans, would have taken a totally different path. Maybe we'd still be here, sitting in front of our computers, wondering what the world would have been like if Pangaea had happened. Or maybe we'd be living on isolated continents, unaware that there's an entire world out there just waiting to be discovered. Either way, Earth would be a far more mysterious and fragmented place, full of surprises and hidden wonders that we might never get the chance to see. But here's the thing, no matter what, we'd still be asking the big question. We'd still be curious about the world around us, still dreaming of what lies beyond the horizon. And that's the beauty of it all. Whether Pangaea happened or not, curiosity never goes out of style. If you enjoyed this trip through the what-ifs of Earth's history, make sure to check out more fascinating scenarios on Hypothetical Scenarios TV, where we explore all the wild, wonderful, and downright weird possibilities of our world and beyond. Stay curious, because you never know what's just around the corner. Or in this case, across the ocean.